What if Putin drops a nuke? Exploring the consequences of a nuclear strike. Introduction. The specter of nuclear war has loomed large over international relations since the dawn of the atomic age. While the Cold War ended decades ago, the potential use of nuclear weapons remains a profound global concern. The scenario of Russian President Vladimir Putin authorizing a nuclear strike has been a topic of intense speculation and analysis, particularly given the geopolitical tensions and conflicts involving Russia. This article delves into the possible consequences of such an action, exploring the immediate and long-term impacts on global politics, the environment, human health, and international security. Historical context: the nuclear age and deterrence. The development of nuclear weapons. The development of nuclear weapons in the mid-20th century marked a turning point in military technology and international relations. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 demonstrated the devastating power of these weapons, leading to a global recognition of their potential to cause unprecedented destruction. The subsequent arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War saw the proliferation of nuclear arsenals and the establishment of doctrines centered on deterrence. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD. The concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, emerged as a cornerstone of nuclear strategy during the Cold War. MAD posits that the use of nuclear weapons by any one nuclear-armed state would result in the total annihilation of both the attacker and the defender, thereby deterring any rational actor from initiating a nuclear conflict. This doctrine has largely prevented the use of nuclear weapons since World War II, maintaining a precarious peace through the threat of catastrophic retaliation. Post-Cold War nuclear policies. The end of the Cold War brought significant changes to nuclear policies and international relations. Nuclear disarmament efforts, such as the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, START, and its successors, aimed to reduce the number of nuclear weapons and decrease the likelihood of nuclear conflict. However, the persistence of nuclear arsenals and the emergence of new nuclear states have kept the threat of nuclear war alive. Geopolitical tensions and the Russian nuclear arsenal. Russia's nuclear capabilities. Russia possesses one of the world's largest and most advanced nuclear arsenals. As of the latest estimates, Russia has approximately 6,000 nuclear warheads, including both strategic and tactical weapons. Strategic nuclear weapons are designed for long-range strikes, capable of targeting cities and military installations across continents. Tactical nuclear weapons, on the other hand, are intended for use on the battlefield and have shorter ranges and lower yields. Russia's nuclear doctrine. Russia's nuclear doctrine outlines the conditions under which it might use nuclear weapons. According to official statements, Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in response to a nuclear attack or an existential threat to the Russian state. This doctrine includes the potential use of tactical nuclear weapons in regional conflicts, a stance that has raised concerns about the lower threshold for nuclear use compared to other nuclear-armed states. Geopolitical flashpoints. Several geopolitical flashpoints involving Russia heighten the risk of nuclear escalation. The conflict in Ukraine, tensions with NATO, and disputes in the Arctic and Baltic regions are all potential triggers for confrontation. Any significant escalation in these areas could lead to scenarios where nuclear use is considered either as a demonstration of force or as a last resort in a losing conflict. Immediate consequences of a nuclear strike. Humanitarian impact. The immediate humanitarian impact of a nuclear strike would be catastrophic. A single nuclear explosion can cause immense loss of life, severe injuries, and long-term health effects. The blast wave from a nuclear detonation can flatten buildings and infrastructure within a wide radius, leading to countless casualties and displacing large populations. Casualties and injuries. The number of casualties in a nuclear strike depends on various factors, including the yield of the weapon, the population density of the target area, and the effectiveness of any early warning systems. A high-yield nuclear explosion in a densely populated urban area could result in hundreds of thousands of deaths and injuries. Survivors would face burns, radiation sickness, and other severe injuries, overwhelming medical facilities and first responders. Long-term health effects. The long-term health effects of a nuclear strike include increased rates of cancer, genetic mutations, and psychological trauma. Radiation exposure from the initial blast and subsequent fallout can lead to chronic health issues for survivors and affect future generations. The psychological impact of such an event would also be profound, with widespread trauma and mental health challenges. Environmental consequences. The environmental consequences of a nuclear strike are severe and far-reaching. The explosion and resulting fires can cause widespread environmental damage, contaminating air, water, and soil. Nuclear fallout, radioactive particles lifted into the atmosphere by the blast, can travel long distances, spreading radiation far beyond the immediate target area. Atmospheric and climatic effects. Nuclear explosions can inject large amounts of soot and debris into the atmosphere, potentially leading to short-term and long-term climatic effects. The concept of nuclear winter suggests that multiple nuclear detonations could cause significant global cooling by blocking sunlight, disrupting agricultural production, and leading to widespread food shortages. Ecological impact. The ecological impact of a nuclear strike would be devastating for local ecosystems. Radiation and heat from the blast can kill plants and animals, disrupt food chains, and render large areas uninhabitable for extended periods. The recovery of ecosystems affected by nuclear fallout would take decades or even centuries. Economic and infrastructural damage. The economic and infrastructural damage from a nuclear strike would be immense. The destruction of cities, industrial facilities, and transportation networks would cripple the affected region's economy. The loss of critical infrastructure, such as power plants, communication systems, and water supplies, would exacerbate the humanitarian crisis and hinder recovery efforts. Economic costs. The economic costs of a nuclear strike include the immediate loss of property and infrastructure, the long-term costs of rebuilding, and the broader economic impact on national and global markets. The destruction of major economic centers could lead to a significant downturn in the global economy, affecting trade, investment, and financial stability. Infrastructural challenges. Rebuilding infrastructure in the aftermath of a nuclear strike would be a monumental challenge. The presence of radiation and the scale of destruction would complicate recovery efforts, requiring extensive resources and international assistance. The disruption of transportation and communication networks would hinder the delivery of aid and the coordination of relief efforts. Long-term global implications. Political and security consequences. The political and security consequences of a nuclear strike would be profound and far-reaching. The use of nuclear weapons would likely lead to a reconfiguration of international alliances, a reassessment of nuclear doctrines, and a potential escalation of conflicts. Shifts in alliances and power dynamics. A nuclear strike by Russia would likely provoke strong reactions from other nuclear-armed states and international alliances such as NATO. The resulting geopolitical shifts could lead to a realignment of alliances, with countries seeking to bolster their security in the face of a heightened nuclear threat. This could result in a new arms race and increased militarization of international relations. Escalation and retaliation. The risk of escalation and retaliation in response to a nuclear strike is significant. Other nuclear-armed states might feel compelled to respond in kind, leading to a potential nuclear exchange with devastating global consequences. The principles of deterrence and mutual destruction would be severely tested, raising the likelihood of miscalculation and inadvertent escalation. Impact on international institutions and treaties. A nuclear strike would also have a profound impact on international institutions and treaties designed to prevent the proliferation and use of nuclear weapons. Key agreements such as the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, and various arms control agreements would come under severe strain. The erosion of arms control agreements. The use of nuclear weapons would likely undermine existing arms control agreements, as trust between nuclear-armed states erodes and the perceived need for deterrence increases. Efforts to negotiate new arms control measures would face significant challenges, potentially leading to an unregulated nuclear arms race. Challenges to the non-proliferation regime. The non-proliferation regime, which aims to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons, would face severe challenges in the aftermath of a nuclear strike. Non-nuclear states might reconsider their security strategies, leading some to pursue their own nuclear capabilities. This would undermine global non-proliferation efforts and increase the risk of nuclear conflict. Societal and cultural impacts. The societal and cultural impacts of a nuclear strike would be profound and long-lasting. The trauma and devastation caused by such an event would leave deep scars on the affected populations and reshape societal norms and values. Psychological and social trauma. The psychological trauma resulting from a nuclear strike would be immense, affecting not only survivors but also the broader global community. The fear and anxiety associated with living in a world where nuclear weapons have been used would have significant social and cultural repercussions. Communities would grapple with grief, loss, and the challenge of rebuilding in the face of such devastation. Cultural and historical legacy. The cultural and historical legacy of a nuclear strike would be significant, shaping collective memory and influencing future generations. The event would likely become a defining moment in global history, symbolizing the catastrophic potential of human conflict and the importance of efforts to prevent nuclear war. The cultural response might include a renewed commitment to peace, disarmament, and international cooperation. Mitigating the risks, diplomacy and de-escalation. The role of international diplomacy. Preventing the use of nuclear weapons and mitigating the risks associated with nuclear conflict requires robust international diplomacy. Dialogue, negotiation, and confidence-building measures are essential to reducing tensions and addressing the underlying causes of conflict. Conflict resolution and peace-building. Efforts to resolve conflicts and build lasting peace are critical to preventing scenarios where nuclear weapons might be used. This involves addressing the root causes of geopolitical tensions, such as territorial disputes, resource competition, and political rivalries. Diplomatic initiatives and peace-building efforts must be prioritized to create a more stable and secure international environment. Confidence-building measures. Confidence-building measures, such as transparency in military activities, communication channels between adversaries, and arms control agreements, play a vital role in reducing the risk of nuclear conflict. These measures help to build trust, prevent misunderstandings, and create mechanisms for de-escalation in times of crisis. Strengthening international institutions. Strengthening international institutions that promote nuclear disarmament, non-proliferation, and conflict resolution is essential to mitigating the risks of nuclear war. Organizations such as the United Nations and the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, play critical roles in monitoring nuclear activities, facilitating dialogue, and promoting adherence to international norms. The United Nations and nuclear disarmament. The United Nations has long been a forum for promoting nuclear disarmament and preventing the spread of nuclear weapons. Initiatives such as the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW, reflect the global commitment to eliminating nuclear arsenals. Strengthening the role of the UN in addressing nuclear threats and supporting disarmament efforts is crucial to maintaining global security. The role of the IAEA. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, plays a vital role in monitoring nuclear activities and ensuring compliance with non-proliferation agreements. Strengthening the IAEA's capabilities and resources is essential to preventing the diversion of nuclear materials for military purposes and promoting the peaceful use of nuclear technology. Promoting public awareness and advocacy. Public awareness and advocacy are important components of efforts to prevent nuclear conflict. Educating the public about the risks of nuclear war and the importance of disarmament can help build a global movement for peace and security. Education and public engagement. Educational initiatives that inform the public about the consequences of nuclear war and the benefits of disarmament can foster a culture of peace. Public engagement efforts, such as campaigns, conferences, and grassroots movements, can mobilize support for policies that reduce the risk of nuclear conflict. Advocacy for disarmament. Advocacy organizations play a crucial role in promoting nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Groups such as the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, ICAN, work to raise awareness, influence policy, and build international coalitions in support of disarmament. Supporting these efforts is essential to creating a safer world. Conclusion. The scenario of Vladimir Putin authorizing a nuclear strike is a chilling reminder of the catastrophic potential of nuclear weapons. The immediate consequences of such an action would include immense humanitarian suffering, environmental devastation, and economic disruption. The long-term global implications would reshape international politics, undermine arms control efforts, and leave deep societal and cultural scars. Preventing such a scenario requires a multifaceted approach that includes robust international diplomacy, strengthened institutions, and public awareness and advocacy. By addressing the root causes of conflict, building trust between nations, and promoting disarmament, the international community can work towards a future where the threat of nuclear war is eliminated. The stakes are high, but the collective effort to prevent nuclear conflict is a testament to humanity's commitment to peace and security.